Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
But first, Ken Livingstone thinks Hitler used to be a Zionist. This suggests that he should not hope too fervently for that appointment to the modern history chair at Oxford. It is hard to say which of the main parties currently has a more effective circular firing squad, but this week you'd have to say Labour is ahead by quite a stretch, with Mr Livingstone chased down the street by one colleague who repeatedly referred to him as an effing disgrace.
Disgusting racist. Rewriting history, you're a disgusting racist.
You're saying it's not true?
Yes, you're a lying racist.
Really? Why don't you go and
A
check your
Nazi
history?
apologist. A Nazi apologist.
Check your history.
A Nazi apologist. You're a disgusting Nazi apologist, Livingstone.
Even by the standards of Westminster, that was, to be blunt, quite something. David, do you think the party has a problem with anti-Semitism?
Well, I think the left, in general, some parts of it has had an ambiguous attitudes towards Jews for quite some time. I have written about this for a while. I don't think it's just the Labour Party. I think the problem is that the left, of which I consider myself a part, more or less, sees itself as the champion of the oppressed, but there are a lot of myths and hangovers about Jews which still hang around, i.e. that they are moneyed and propertied and in power and secretly in control. And the left, therefore, doesn't quite fit the Jewish community in the category of the oppressed. And with Israel and with their attitude towards Israel, they, in fact, see Jews, or some Jews, as the oppressor, and that makes it harder, or has made it harder, for them to extend to Jewish people the kind of protections that they have extended automatically to all sorts of other ethnic minorities. And I can give you loads and loads of examples of this, but I can also tell you that on Twitter and on social media, where I get stuff every day much, much worse than Naz Shah posted, most of the time, if I get sort of very virulent anti-Semitism, someone at the top of it will have like a Maoist slogan or some kind of hammer and sickle slogan, more likely than a right-wing one. Not that the right-wing anti-Semitism has gone away either. We get it from both ends.
I don't know whether it's fair to say you're a supporter of the Labour Party per se.
I'm not a supporter of the Labour Party per se. I'm kind of on the left generally, I would say.
Are you a lot less a supporter of the Labour Party after this incident, or is it just...
Well, not especially. No, I'm not. I wouldn't say. I still vote Labour, I think, for lots of reasons. But I think that Jeremy Corbyn is not an anti-Semite. I think the problem is that the discourse is the thing. And a lot of time it's unconscious. Like even Naz Shah's post, in itself, it was probably an attempt just to be funny about Israel, to try and be satirical about Israel. And so that's okay. But then she adds to the post that this idea of moving Israel to the United States will save them some pocket money. Right now, in that, what she has done is refer to an anti-Semitic trope.
Can I bring you in here? What do you...
I mean, just on that, didn't she mean it will save the Americans some money because they were bankrolling Israel? So it wasn't Jewish.
Are you sure about that?
I thought that was what it was. I mean, I think the post was really dodgy, and I would never. I think we need to disaggregate a kind of nastiness that has crept into the way people talk to each other from a kind of persistent problem on a block on a kind of wing of politics, because there is a nastiness in the way some people on the right talk about Jewish people. There is a nastiness in the way some people on the left. There's a kind of new nastiness appended to all kinds of groups, and I was thinking about this in terms of the hard left and misogyny, and that there being a very kind of distinct flavour to that. There's a really distinct flavour to that on the right, but I also think there's a huge amount of gotcha. There's a huge amount of people picking up on something somebody said and going, right, that's it, your whole party definitely has a problem with X, Y, Z. And it's kind of coarsening because they know that that's not really what's meant.
But do you think the specific allegation this week, and it's a good moment to bring Nigel in a moment because he's had plenty of accusations against him and his party, but just on the Labour Party specifically, the direct allegation is that the party has a problem with anti-Semitism. Do you believe that is true or not?
I think there are kind of people in the party, just as there are in every party, who are anti-Semitic, yeah. But I don't think there's an attempt by the Labour Party to cover up anti-Semites in it. No, not for a second.
And just just for 1 second, while we're on gotcha, do you think this whole business is being used by the anti-Corbynists to put pressure on him?
It's dead cat on the table politics. It's like, we'll say this outrageous thing and everybody will talk about it, and it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. And I think you kind of get a huge amount of I just think it's very base. I think there should be some good faith in politics, if not from, you know, the tabloids, at least from the politicians. If you say a thing, you've got to at least believe it. You might be wrong, you might have to argue it, but you've got to believe it. And I think people might think Ken Livingstone is an anti-Semite. Nobody thinks Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic, do they? Do you?
No, I don't think Jeremy Corbyn is an anti-Semite, but I think that, as I say, the discourse that he exists in slides very easily into anti-Semitism. That's the problem. And I do think he's found it very difficult to distance himself from, say, Ken.
This is really interesting. I think the thing with Israel is really interesting because, you know, the kind of people who... There are people who would say, just by fixating on Israel the way you do and never mentioning any other oppressive regimes, never mentioning what's wrong with Sudan, never mentioning what's wrong with Central African Republic, just that fixation is an anti-Semitic problem on the left. And then the left is like, well, I'm not going to stop talking about this just because you say that. So it's got locked into quite a kind of stubborn battle, which actually doesn't have anything to do with with kind of foreign policy or oppression or anything else. It's a kind of stubborn left-right rhetorical battle.
Can I bring Nigel in here? Because what do you make of this? You've had your own accusations.
Oh, goodness me. I mean, you know, in 2014, we were coming from nowhere to the front, and indeed, in the end, we won the European elections. We were accused of everything. You know, we were anti-black, we were anti-Jew, we were anti-Muslim, we were anti-women, we were anti-gay, you know.
And to be fair, there were some of your colleagues with some interesting views, which you admitted.
And here's the difference, A Baptist minister who was a parish councillor in Henley-on-Thames, who'd been a Conservative for 22 years.
Can we avoid the lawyers on this one
and
just for a
defected
moment?
to us, as a Baptist minister, had a very strong view against gay marriage. And that was a front page national newspaper story, item number 2 on national news at 10 o'clock. Now, so, I've had it, but with relatively minor ranking people, not with Ken Livingstone. But I think the shock that perhaps Zoe's going to be in for is this is far worse. No, this is far worse. Labour supporters are going to be shocked because what's happened here is there have been elements of the left who have taken a pro-Palestinian position, aggressively pro-Palestinian position, and have criticised Israel again and again and again and again and again. And now what you've got is that has been allied to, I'm sad to say, a new sectarianism that exists within English politics. We've never seen it before. We've seen sectarianism in Northern Ireland with Catholic and Protestant, and look where that got us to. And I'm afraid today, today we saw 3 Labour councillors who have been suspended from the Labour Party, and what you'll find over the next few weeks is there will be many, many more of them. Once this stuff starts, it's very difficult to stop this narrative.
I want to bring in Merrin in a moment, just for the slight outsider's view of what's going on in Labour. But just from your point of view, do you have some sympathy with Jeremy Corbyn? You know, there is the sense, I mean, some people think his leadership on this has been atrocious. Some people think that what's actually happening is that everyone is using this a bit to try and up the pressure on him. What's your own... You've been on the receiving end. Do you have any sympathy with him?
I've never had friends like Hamas and Hezbollah. And some of the people that Corbyn has spoken up for and shared platforms with, whether he is anti-Semitic himself or not, I'm afraid has given the view that the party is in the wrong place.
But do you have any sympathy with him, just as a leader dealing with this? Do you think things are being thrown at him that are unfair?
Oh, I think in a month's time I will do, yes, because this will not stop.
OK. And what do you make of this as an outsider? You're a... You know, do you think the Labour Party is really in trouble? Is it being exaggerated? Is Jeremy Corbyn about to be for the chop? What do you
No,
think?
I mean, I think the Labour Party is in trouble. And when you look at this from the outside, when you're not inside the Westminster Village or the media village, you look at it and you think, well, what on earth is going on here? You know, this is something that happened. And if there is a problem with anti-Semitism, why is it not stamped on immediately? Why is it still here 10 days later? Why is there not a leader in place who can deal with it, make it go away, be strong, and bring the conversation back to what presumably matters to people? You know, we have a situation here where it looks from the outside like a Labour Party is entirely obsessed with issues that are of relevance to not that many people. They should be stamped on, dealt with, and we should move on to thinking about, you know, if you ask the average person in the audience what are the things that are on their top list of things they'd like the Labour Party to deal with, it's not this.
Well, hang on.
This is something that is marginal, and it should be removed
yes and
from the
no,
Labour Party.
actually. Can I just disagree? Can I just disagree with that? Because what
Yeah.
that implies is something that's at the centre of this debate, which is that anti-Semitism is a niche issue. It isn't, because it is racism. It's really important that we understand this. Anti-Semitism is racism, and a party that may or may not be racist, that is not a niche issue.
Absolutely my point is that what you have here is a Labour Party that has shifted away from what most people think the Labour Party is.
Yeah.
Where you have a hard left part of it that has come to take control of it, and it no longer represents what most people think it represents, and that's the thing that should change.
I want to disagree.
And they want a proper opposition, an opposition that is speaking for the
Zoe's disagreeing fervently, so let's hear it.
Zoe always disagrees.
We meet to disagree.
Yeah.
The thing is, OK, so you've got this, you can say that the Labour Party is now hard left and it no longer represents what people want from a Labour Party. That's one issue. But the people keeping this on the front page are not the Labour Party. It's just being hounded by right-wing commentators who are using it opportunistically. And that's what makes me really galled about it, is that it's not real politics. It doesn't mean anything.
If you find an endless stream of Labour Party councillors.
It's not an endless stream, it's like 7 remarks of crazes.
Who have made endlessly made racist comments on Facebook and Twitter. You have to get back.
Let's leave those for a second. Zoe, I just want to ask you about one thing. You've got the Welsh Labour leader who doesn't appear to want his national leader there. You've got Sadiq Khan who's distancing himself a bit. That surely is a problem for the Labour Party.
No, that problem is that they don't like the Corbyn leadership. That's a completely separate problem. They don't dislike the Corbyn leadership because of his line on Palestine.
No, that's true. But on that.
It's a classic example of failing to lead, failing to control, failing to focus on.
This I find really interesting because I do think it's true that if he'd come out straight away with the Naz Shah case, for example, and said absolutely this is completely wrong, we hate racism, we hate anti-Semitism, we hate prejudice of every kind, that would have been leadership. I think the reason he didn't is because he's so gobsmacked by the accusation. You know, this is a guy who's spent 40 years on the fringes of politics precisely because he's so anti-prejudice.
Can I just?
And then he's suddenly told that he's an anti-Semite.
I want to move everyone on, actually, just focus on one other thing a little bit, which is, in the sense that you've talked about the pressure on Corbyn and how it's being used. Yeah. How do you think this plays out in the next 3 or 4 weeks? We've got the local elections. I get that. I mean, I'm not at Westminster directly every day as I used to be, but I get the distinct sense that a coup is, underway. Or I know they're talking about it every day, but it feels like the momentum is beginning to shift towards that. Yes, do you expect that?
It's hard to use the word momentum now, right?
Yeah. No. Okay. Sorry. Unfortunate term.
Well, I think it's softening. I think the local elections were going to be the thing that triggered a coup if a coup came, and this is just kind of opportunistic week before to get ready. So yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised at any point after the 5th to see.
And do you think it's coming?
Manoeuvres against him? Oh yeah, I mean I think it's coming from his own kind of inner circle.
Okay, and what happens then? Because you've got a situation which is kind of, fascinating to Westminster observers. You've got a party that shifted right to the left. You've got MPs absolutely unhappy with the current leadership, but presumably the party membership would elect someone very similar, wouldn't they?
I think the problem is that previously, when Corbyn first got in, there's like a battle between the local party and the central party, right? It's like the central party had gone this way and the local party hadn't gone with them, and the local party inconveniently had all the votes. Now I think it's just become much more complicated. I think even within the left there's quite a lot of division, which is kind of. It's laughable the way we can do this on the left, but we can find...
Oh, they can do it on the right as well.
I just feel like the right are much better at cooperating, Nigel, but maybe that's wrong.
No, can I just ask you, do you think Jeremy Corbyn is going to face a coup? Just so you're a long-term observer of Westminster, you don't always like the place, but you've been watching it a long time.
If the MPs mount a coup against Corbyn and force a leadership challenge, let's say later on this summer, early autumn, they'll be in for a horrible shock. Because those hundreds of thousands of people that joined the Labour Party last year at £3 a pop will still support Jeremy Corbyn. So I think if they do call a leadership election, they couldn't possibly exclude him as a candidate. They'll be in for a real shock. And all of this...
Call the leadership left, then he'll get back.
And all of this says... all of this says to millions of traditional Labour voters, this party has moved so far away from me, it's not true. I think Labour's in big trouble.
David, final word to you. Do you think a coup is inevitable?
I'm slightly worried that if Jeremy Corbyn does have a coup mounted against him, then eventually people will say, well, that was obviously the fault of the Jews, who were secretly plotting against him from the start, like they always do. So I would prefer them not to have a plot, not to have a coup against him.
OK.
I've been getting away with it all